sorry.
All right, good afternoon. It is November 18th, and we're going to call the November Student Achievement Committee meeting to order. But before we can get going, I need to entertain a motion to approve the October 21st minute meetings.
So moved.
It's a motion from Ms. Rice. Second from Ms. Gordon to approve the October 21st meetings. Minutes, all in favor, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same signs. The minutes pass unanimously. And Dr. Hill, I will turn it over to you to get us
Thank you,
started.
Vice Chair Swanson. Good afternoon to everyone. We do have two items that we want to bring to you all today. First, we want to give you an overview of our Start Strong with our Child Find and the future of our pre-K program. And then we want to give you an update of where we are with our regional learning model. So I have Michelle Wilson with us today, and she's going to lead us off because we have some new introductions and some announcements for some folks today.
Good afternoon. I hope you all are well today. I'm super excited to just share with you that we have a new director for our early learning services. This is Shatanya Clay Young. She's going to be and already is amazing. She's been a part of our team for a while and is just moving into that director position. So we're thrilled she's here, and we are here to also celebrate my friend right here, who is retiring in just a matter of days. So we're getting every bit out of her that we can. But she has a well-deserved retirement, has been doing amazing things for kids for a long time, and we're just really grateful for her. So
I feel like this is what student achievement is all about. We get to celebrate those great leaders that are making the work happen.
and doing great things for our new leaders that are coming on board.
Absolutely.
So she's done great with that. So I'm going to turn it over to Dawn.
One thing I would love to say before we start the presentation, it really has been an honor to work for this Wake County Public School System for 32 years. And the work that just like serving the community, whether it was students as a teachers, students as a teacher, families, principals, teachers, it really has been an honor to be able to do that. So I'm very grateful for the school system for 32 years. But excited at the same time. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. During our session, here are outcomes. We will be communicating the requirements related to Child Find and that process. We're going to also explore trend data to better understand where we are with our growth with preschool special education. And we also want to review the revised pre-K plan for the future. So those are our desired outcomes today. Of course, when we look at the alignment to our strategic plan, our work does support Priority 1 and Goal 1 by equipping children with knowledge and skills that set the foundation for school success, meeting graduation rates, and eliminating proficiency disparities. And then, I feel like most of you already know this, but pre-K programs makes a difference for children and families. In research, we have many years of research that really talks about children who participate in high-quality learning early learning programs. They have greater school success and life success. So our work really does make a difference. In addition, we often think about how for us in our department, we are oftentimes the first interactions that families have with the school system. And we take a great deal of pride in that, and it's a responsibility, a big responsibility. And we know that if families have a positive experience with us and our customer service is strong, they're more likely to gonna stay here in the school system and go to kindergarten here and really have that parent engagement and feel like they are part of their child's educational journey. So that is very important to us. So our department is really made up of 3 different areas. And you'll see here we have Project Enlightenment, which is really focused on programs and services for families and caregivers. We have 2 demonstration classrooms there. We offer developmental screenings and all other programs and services, from parents as teachers to our teacher-parent consultants. And that's really for children and their families birth to age 5. Then when we look at preschool programs, those are really direct services to students. So that Title I Pre-K is under there, preschool special education. This is where we do comprehensive preschool special education evaluations. And Shatina's going to talk a little bit more about that in detail. And that's really focused on children ages 3 to 5. And then lastly, our Early Learning Center, which is in year 3. We have 8 pre-K classrooms there, an evaluation team, and we offer speech services. And that's really focused on children ages 3 to 5. And while I do have the opportunity, we have our 2 directors of those areas with us. Sherry Williams is our director of the Early Learning Center, who started it and has done an amazing job. And then Callie Brown, our Director of Project Enlightenment, who's also fantastic. So we have an amazing team. Today we're really going to focus on preschool programs, and we're really going to dig into Child Find and the preschool special education services and that component. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shatina, as you heard, our new director, and this is week 3 for her. Week 3.
Thank you, Dawn. So as Dawn shared today, we will focus on preschool programs in our presentation. We're grateful for this opportunity once again to come and share this important information regarding Child Find with you. As our numbers continue to grow, this is an opportunity for us to share how pre-K students become students within Wake County Public School System. So Child Find is a federal mandate based on Part B, section of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA. This mandate is designated to ensure that the state and therefore the district have in effect policies and procedures to ensure that all children with disabilities residing in the state, including children ages 3 to 5, are located, evaluated, identified, and served. Here you will see this mandate noting again that as a district we must follow. Because of this, we're constantly seeing new children who are suspected of having a disability. New notifications and referrals come to our office on a daily basis from a variety of sources, which we will explore in greater detail. Therefore, as children are identified, this means that the placements into schools occur all year long. This graphic indicates that essential elements of our Child Find process. So you'll see here the process of Child Find relies heavily on established community and family partnerships that allow referring agencies like private child care centers and pediatricians to notify our office when a child is suspected of having a disability. We also work hard to ensure that families are also heard during the IEP meetings. We are all aware that this process can be very overwhelming for families, and so we continue to offer sessions to support families so that they can learn all about the IEP process from start to finish. This process also involves a multidisciplinary evaluation team consisting of a case manager, team teacher, psychologist, speech language pathologist, and other professionals and related service providers. So once a child is found eligible for services, we make an assignment according to the decision of the IEP team in order to offer free and appropriate public education, also known as FAPE. This process leads to students receiving targeted services based on their needs and also preparation for their transition to kindergarten. So to complete this work day in and day out are the multidisciplinary evaluation teams. As noted earlier, in addition to the case manager, team teacher, psychologist, speech language pathologist, often a child's needs require other professionals such as an occupational therapist, physical therapist, audiologist, and even at times social workers. In this configuration, it's noted that the high levels of cross-departmental collaboration occurring with OEL, special education services, and counseling and student services. So once a child moves through the referral, evaluation, and eligibility processes, children are placed or are served in a variety of ways. We provide direct services of students in classrooms, both general and special education programs, as well as itinerant and speech services. In addition to our 192 classrooms, we do have 34 itinerant teachers serving in 268 childcare and home locations, with a total of 697 students being served at the end of last school year in this model. Our speech services occur in homes, speech sites, childcare centers, and groups. At the end of last year, we had 19 itinerant speech therapists to serve 755 students. Again, this level of service an individual child receives is determined by the IEP team based on the needs and the strengths of the child, as well as how much services and where those services need to be delivered in order for the child to make adequate progress. This is also a federal and state mandate. Now we'll dive a little further into the data for Child Find. As we look at some data, in the 2024-2025 school year, we had a total of 2,806 students referred to our office for students suspected of having a disability. The majority of these referrals came from third-party providers such as physicians, social workers, DHHS, community agencies, and private child care centers. As you can see in the first column, about 41% of our notifications came from these sources. In the middle column, you see that 28% of our notifications came from the Child Development Services Agency, also known as the CDSA. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act has a provision called Part C, which is a program that covers early intervention services for children with disabilities from birth to age 2. We are fortunate here in Wake County to have a strong working relationship with our CDSA, where we together support each other in honoring our own policies and regulations while also meeting the needs of our families and students. Our family notifications account for about 31% of our notifications, which is when a family directly reaches out to our office to request to begin the referral process. As you can see, our community partnerships are essential to our operations. Here you will note the growth that preschool programs has experienced over the past 5 years. Our pre-pandemic numbers have been a baseline set that we've used to determine our growth. Since the 2019-2020 school year, we've had 2,264 notifications. During the 2024-2025 school year, we've had 2,806 notifications. We have grown in the number of notifications to our office by 24%, which equates to 542 students. This increase in notifications has led the preschool programs leadership team to initiate a number of changes in the ways that we move students through our Child Find office in order to adjust our practices within our current infrastructure to meet the needs of the community. We continue to see the growth in all functions of our work. The number of referral meetings held more than doubled from 2019 to 2020 to our 2024-2025 school year, with an increase of 1,200 referral meetings. Evaluations for children increased as our teams evaluated 874 more students in the 2024-2025 school year when compared to the 2019-2020 school year. Further, our eligibility meetings increased by 1,043 students when comparing the 2019-2020 school year to the 2024-2025 school year. These figures suggest continued growth in needed services, particularly in preschool special education.
All right, so Shatina has really focused on Child Find and the special education process and those requirements, but we also want to step back and really highlight all of the different pre-K programs in our district. So as she mentioned, for the 24-25 school year, we currently have 192 pre-K classrooms in our district. So we're just going to do a quick review of the different types of public funded pre-K programs. You'll see the first there is NC Pre-K, and that program serves students based on income eligibility. And you'll see that those are in private provider sites, Telemon, Head Start, as well as the school system. Then next, we have Title I Pre-K, and that particular program serves students based on academic need. So with that particular program, we use a shared application with Title I, with NC Pre-K, and Telemon Head Start. And the reason for that is to make it easy for families so that they have one application, and whether it be academic need or income or both, we are making it easy for families to access services, and then we work behind the scenes with our partners to place them. So another piece of that is there's a screening, a student screening that occurs, as well as a parent survey. So once we have all that information, we do a rank order to determine the highest academic need for our Title I slots. Then our blended classrooms, they serve 6 students with disabilities and 9 students who have been identified through the Title I process. So a total of 15, and those are our blended classrooms. And then lastly, well, not quite lastly, but our preschool special education classrooms, they serve students with disabilities. And those children are requiring special ed services based on their IEP. So these programs some are full day, some are part day. We have itinerant, as Shatana noted. We have speech under this. So it's a variety of different levels of services and programs, just even under that preschool special education and those services. And then lastly, Head Start. So Head Start is another one that is based on income eligibility. But one thing that is unique about Head Start is that it's income eligibility, but it's also, they do a lot of wraparound services for families as well. So that does differentiate that particular program. And we do have, at just a side note, at Southeast Raleigh Elementary, we have 4 pre-K classrooms. 2 are our Title I NC Pre-K, and then 2 are Telemon Head Start as well. So we do partner with that particular agency frequently. So next, we're going to take a look at our revised plan. So you will see here that from 2024 to 2031, there is a shift going from 186 to 197. And many of you have seen a version of this plan previously at other board presentations. County commissioners have seen this in some of your joint meetings as well. And what we every year we take a look at our child count data as well as population growth data for this age. We work with Smart Start in the county to generate that. And so what we've done is we've made some revisions based on the patterns that we're seeing with our trend data. So this is the most current information over this last month, and you will see that it does go from 186 to the 197. This is lower than we had originally proposed in previous years, and that is based on what we're seeing with our child count and the population projection. So we really do base this on data, although we would love to add even more classrooms. For example, our Title I funding, because of the unknowns with federal funding, we are not able to, for example, add an additional Title I next year, or even a blended, because of the unknowns with the federal funding. So, but all of this is based on data, and we do a deep dive with analysis on that. So I do want you to note, though, I believe it's in 27-28, you will see that in that particular year, we have prioritized an itinerant teacher. And Shatana spoke to that itinerant teachers also provide special education services in child care centers and homes and different settings. So that is something, not just classrooms, but an itinerant teacher we are proposing for that particular year to address that need that we have. When we're looking at the data and the trends, we're seeing that we will need an additional itinerant teacher that particular year.
Sorry, Chair here. Thank you, Vice Chair Swanson. Could you explain to everyone what an itinerant teacher is in case they're not familiar with the term?
Absolutely. Do you want me to do it or you want me to?
Sure.
Okay.
An itinerant teacher is a certified teacher who will go into the homes or child care center to deliver the specially designed instruction for children. Oftentimes, these children need a minimal amount of specially designed instruction, but they're able to be provided in their natural environment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
I'm going to tag on to that. That one teacher might serve multiple locations in addition to that. So that's not one teacher at one location, but they may be going to several locations.
They go regionally throughout the county, yes. In their vehicles a lot. So when we're looking at supporting growth in our next steps, as I shared, we really do look at the data. So we are requesting to open one additional pre-K classroom for the 26-27 school year. And that is something that we do desperately need based on the increases that you saw from our data and the significant increase over the years that we're seeing. And we will continue our cross-departmental collaboration with counseling and student services, with special ed, as well as other departments. We're really proud of our community partnerships as well, and we continue to strengthen and make those connections. It is essential with this particular work as we serve children at a very young age and their families to build those relationships and be on the same page, because we do have similar goals. So we also continue our family support and really encourage family engagement. I think you've heard that as a theme, that is very important to us. So we really are fortunate to live in a community with great early learning services and programs. We do have a lot of resources in our community, and some of the other programs that we've mentioned previously that we just want to really draw your attention to are NC Pre-K, Telemon Head Start, and 3 School. And some of these are funded from a variety of sources. Some are federal, some are state, some are funded by the county commissioners. For example, 3 School. Wake County Smart Start, funded by county commissioners and the state. So we do have a lot of programs that we partner with, and these are just a few of the amazing partners. Like Marvel's Kids Museum is another example, and a lot of other ones. And so we really collaborate and work together to support families. We feel like that is essential in this work, that we align, and we really are in this work together. So we have the same goal of providing high-quality programs and services for families to ensure that all children are ready for school success. Because as we've mentioned, we know the research supports this, and if we can get children ready for school and school success, and families have a good experience early on, it really just can change everything for a child and that family. So, with that said, what questions do you have for us today?
Well, thank you for walking us through this, and what we'll do is just go around the table and go from there. So, Chair Haggerty, you want to start? Or
Go ahead.
Or Mr.
Sure. Thank you so much, and lovely to meet you. Welcome. Thinking about next year's budget, I've said this in different settings, work session, I think at the board table too, for many reasons unrelated to this room, to this space. I have a lot of concern about the budget for 2026. And so with the request of, I know that's not formal today, but of opening a new pre-K class, can you please walk us through what the expenses are and what that, a general sense of what that budget line item is going to be?
Absolutely, I'm happy to do that. So that particular classroom would be for 1 teacher as well as 2 instructional assistants. We are also, one thing that was not noted here, but we are looking at a scheduler to help. You heard the increases in the referrals and the number of children that have to be evaluated, and some of the other districts have essentially hired a schedulers to do that. Like, think about it, the doctor's office, because right now our case managers are doing that. So that's taking away from their program time. So we're actually looking at a teacher, the 2 IAs, and with the scheduler, we would want to be converting a current IA position and just doing a small upgrade to make it a scheduler. So that's like $5,000, and then the teacher and the 2 IAs. But honestly, because we do understand the current financial situation, we are looking internally to look at if we can, and this is what would be our goal, that we are in the process of analyzing to determine if we can use some of our NC pre-K funds that we are generating. We have never done this before, to use it this way for a special ed classroom, but it is allowable. And so that's actually what we're looking at doing, so that we would not be requesting local dollars. You would see a bit like the business cases, but you would not need to be requesting from our county commissioners. Is that too detailed, or is that?
No, that's really helpful, and I appreciate the chair for allowing me a follow-up. To be very, very clear to everybody here, everyone listening, I have no hesitation supporting this. We know how critical pre-K is. I would expand it even further if we could, but I worry that we will be faced with cuts in 2026. And so I just wanted a clear understanding publicly of what this, would cost, but it is in no way to be interpreted as a lack of support. So, thank you.
I would love to tag onto that, to just simply say also that what we're talking about are students that we are required by law to serve.
Yes.
So that just kind of adds to your point as well. Just wanted to make sure we kind of added that in.
Thank you.
Not to speak out of turn, but my question was very aligned with yours with the sustainability, given that we're seeing that the U.S. Department of Education is existing, but not, I'm trying to choose my words very politely. In crisis mode, I guess, is the most appropriate way of phrasing that, and seeing how we're talking about our most vulnerable students, our most vulnerable population, and seeing the cuts that they have done to our most critical families is very concerning. And so I do know that I'm, like you, Ms. Evans, in support of this, but I think there's a lot of unknowns that we're all going to be faced with that I don't think we can just brush past. Chair Haggerty, do you have a question?
No.
Okay. We'll come around this side. Ms. Gordon?
No, thank you.
Ms. Rice?
Everybody knows this is my favorite subject. First, kudos to an amazing team that I have loved from the very beginning. I think my colleagues and I always know I need 2 sandboxes to play in, and that's early childhood education and student well-being. I will forever champion for those 2 areas. Why? Because it does exactly why we exist as a district. It closes student achievement gaps, it creates the greatest accessibility to achievement, and it actually empowers our economic drive, right? And I think that's the key that we miss a lot. So I'm so grateful to hear that my colleagues are strongly in agreement and alignment around early childhood education. So now that I've got that out the way, and I'll just, I love early childhood education. But I want to ask if you all will elaborate around some of the work that you've been doing with the notification piece and your partners, because Ms. Woodson said something that's very important, and that is, for community may or may not know, you should, as early as you can, you should get your child assessed. And it's not anything derogatory. It is about making sure that your child has the strongest building blocks to be successful before starting school. And one of your amazing partners that you have in here, which is Project Enlightenment, I just want community to really know that that program is not just for specialized people. It is for our county. It is to identify who our children are. And I'm going to stop talking and let you guys maybe speak to that, the work that you've been doing with DHHS and Project Enlightenment, and the great things that are happening so that students coming into the district can really be kindergarten ready.
Happy to do that, and we can tag team if I miss something. But So thank you so much for asking that question and bringing that up, because one of the things that we do, even from the start, all pediatricians in Wake County receive information from our department about the programs and services, whether it's the screening that you just referenced, whether it's highlighting all of our programs and services. So every pediatrician in Wake County receives that. They also receive flyers that they can put out in their waiting room. Also, child care centers. All child care centers receive information from us about that. So we really are trying to get the word out, because just like you said, we need everyone to know this so that they can access and start early with what to do. Referencing Project Enlightenment, a developmental screening. Any concerns about a child, it is completely free to go and have a developmental screening. And the screening might say, oh, there are some concerns, let's refer this to Child Fund, or it might be, no, your child is just having some, developmental speech issues or some challenges because of something that the family is going through. Let me take you over to the Parent-Teacher Resource Center and show you some of the materials and the opportunities, or it might be Positive Parenting Program and Triple P. So all kinds of wonderful resources. And we have been really fortunate to work with our regional centers, the Health and Human Services Regional Centers, thanks to you, and really partnering with them to get the message out. This past spring, we were able to do some of our Title I screenings there, which was fantastic, because we really want to reduce simple barriers like being able to get to Cary or to our Wake Up and Read location, meeting families where they are. So that has been very exciting, and we continue, which is why working with partners who are in places where families already are is very important, and those partnerships, because that way it's removing barriers for families.
Just want to say one last thing. I also wanted to say thank you for that great work. Our county manager and deputy county manager are very excited to when that came about. And one of the things that I'm hoping that will continue, since we talk a lot about regional programs and regional connections, is that Drew is breaking my heart with all this retirement noise from Dawn, and Drew is just driving me up the wall. But we talked about our academics programming. Like, it's not costing any more money, it's not doing anything but staff to transition one day into one of the regional spaces and creating a contract the same way that we did with our early childhood department, so that parents aren't having to go everywhere. They can just go to a regional center location, get something started. Doesn't mean that the person that's there necessarily knows the department, but at least it gives them someone within the district to connect with, to get something started and get it sent to the right person. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to develop that and continue to work with staff to make these things happen, to make engagement look really great, so that we can close the student achievement gap. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Swanson. Now we're going to transition and look at our regional model, support model update. So we have some members that are going to join and transition out now. Putting up our presentation now. This afternoon, we are joined by a collaboration of team members, both in AAT as well as our collaborative partners with area superintendents and we have our building principal, Ms. Morgan from Rogers Lane. And so we're here this afternoon discussing and looking at how we're driving academic and also behavioral success by centering our efforts around targeted, data-driven support and collaboration across departments. We cannot do this in isolation. So we want to begin our presentation by looking at our desired outcomes. We will have three main objectives that we want to target today. We want to clearly communicate how our regional support model provides that targeted support that does in fact enhance instructional practices and aligns with our strategic goals for equity and also excellence. We want to highlight how this model fosters collaboration among academics, special education, and student support services to meet the very unique and prescriptive needs of our schools. And then finally, we want to look at key support domains of how they work together to improve student outcomes and do in fact create thriving learning environments. This is in alignment with our strategic plan. And as we look at the focus of teaching and learning through the lens of our students, it is crucial to align that work with our strategic plan, which centers on two key priorities. We have priority one, student knowledge and skills, and in that priority, our goal is to deliver a high-quality instructional core, instruction across all content areas, where we have rigorous, culturally responsive, and inclusive curriculum resources that is enhanced by technology. We're also focused on analyzing how our students are doing with their performance data to guide that instructional planning and to drive high-impact interventions with an emphasis on equity-focused practices. And we want to make sure that we're looking at those practices to eliminate the overrepresentation of students in special ed and make sure the underrepresentation in advanced coursework by race, ethnicity, and gender is addressed. When we focus on priority two, we are aiming to provide a safe, inclusive learning environment that supports our students' behavioral health needs, because the brain cannot learn if it does not feel safe. And then we capitalize on operational effectiveness in priority three, where we aim to differentiate resource allocation to provide all of our students with equitable access to high-quality resources, with our teachers and our students all being held to having sufficient support services. By aligning our academic advancement priorities with these strategic aims, we ensure that our efforts will not only be impactful, but also equitable while we're supporting all of our students to drive academically, socially, and emotionally success. I'm now going to turn it over to the upcoming retiree to talk about our regional model and go a little bit deeper in that effort.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. I do not feel retired this week, I can assure you. Sprinting across the finish line, we're not coasting, but thank you for that. And just to kind of expand what Dr. Hill introduced, I think our board and our board committee understands and knows this really is work that goes back now 2 years. And as we kind of jump in today, and we've got members at the table that will talk in more detail about personal experiences and observations, I think one of the things that we don't want to get lost is just how significant a lift this work has been and will continue to be. And the other thing that I'll note is that this, I think originally, Dr. Hill, was intended to be a 1-2 combination with the special education services update that you had in the last Student Achievement Committee meeting. We had to kind of reschedule. So just know we want it to kind of be connected because they really are. And so what Ms. Alra did last month was give you really a forecast of what's coming with this work in special ed services. And I think we can categorize today kind of where we've been and where we are now and where we're going moving forward. But hopefully you'll be able to kind of see some of those common themes and also connections even back to the work session conversation that we had on November the 4th as we look at the strategic plan, talk about some of those academic and behavioral metrics that we discussed. I think that obviously will continue today on operational effectiveness, but hopefully you'll be able to kind of see how all of this work is interconnected, because that's absolutely the intent. And so on that note, in that spirit, the learning model, which by this point you are very familiar with, if we had to simplistically say this is the what in terms of our expectations and the level set that we're attempting to establish across all of our schools in the district. And at least from a district standpoint, the regional model and the regional support framework in many ways is the how and the who in terms of how we're making decisions about where our teams are going, what they're doing when they get there, and even as Dr. Hill just referenced, what data points we're paying attention to in terms of that differentiated targeted support that we want to be able to provide to schools. And so ultimately, we want to be where we're needed the most, for lack of a better description. We do that by aligning coaching, and I think obviously Michelle and I are sitting side by side. Symbolically and practically speaking, behavior and academics is interconnected. Quite frankly, our organizational structures in the past haven't always reflected that. And one of the things that we'll talk about in a few minutes is that even job titles sometimes can unintentionally show silos when obviously that's not the intent. So even things like MTSS, behavior, at times unintentionally created silos. Now the other thing that I think our team members over here will emphasize and support is that conversely, changing a job title doesn't fix it either. And I want to be very clear, we're here today to highlight some of the things that we see that are working, that are beginning to have positive affect. I think everybody in this room and all of the principals in our district and classroom teachers and PLC leaders will tell you this is a work in progress, and there are still a great many significant challenges. Ms. Edmonds, you mentioned budget, staffing, all of those things are risks in terms of our ability to really implement this and give it time to have the positive effects that we want it to be able to do. So we don't want to sugarcoat this. There's a lot of challenge. There's been a lot of, I don't know if I would use the word pain, but when you change a job description, when you change job titles, when you change supervisors, and I'm talking about for dozens and dozens of people, many of whom are long-standing members of the Wake County Public School System, that's not an easy thing to do. And by and large, that's work that everybody in this room has been involved in one form or another over the past couple of years. It's work that certainly in special education services we still have ahead of us, and I know Ms. Allred talked more about that last month. So I wanted to make that clear as well. This is not, we've arrived. This is really, I think, the best way to categorize this is that we recognize that we would never arrive 2 years ago if we just kept doing the way we had always done things. And I think we've all got to give some credit to Dr. Wilson Norman, who started this work 2 years ago, that's now being picked up by Dr. Hill, certainly Dr. Taylor with his arrival shortly thereafter. This clearly, I think, is an indication that we're not satisfied with where we have been. I think we talk about this with our teams all the time. There's risk involved with making significant changes like what we're describing today. All that said, I think we're starting to see some positive results where this is beginning to take root, and that's our hope and aspiration in the months and years ahead. In terms of the drivers of change, and I think you've seen this particular slide before, so I won't spend too much time on this. Building strong relationships is critical. I think we recognize that post-pandemic, if there was ever a gap, there was a gap historically between schools and central services. I think that's not a secret. Our fear has been that given the pace of change and the challenges that have been magnified at the school level over the past 3, 4, 5 years, unless some of us have been in a school building in that time frame, it's possible and maybe even likely that not only have maybe some of us forgotten what it was like, but because it's changed so dramatically, we might not know what it's like. And the only way that we can help to bridge that gap is to be where the work is happening, and that is direct support in schools, in classrooms, and I mean every single day. And so that was a key driver of the work, but also just kind of strengthening the trust and understanding between our schools and our district. And again, that's a work in progress. And I think at times, certainly We still miss that mark, but it's something that remains, I think, a key priority for this work and related work in terms of our district efforts around the regional model. So in terms of the support structures then, now a little bit more detail, and again, some of this is review. This slide gives you a little bit of an overview of the before, kind of the pre-2024. And I want to be clear, right now we're talking just about academics. We've got 4 departments in academic advancement: student support services, special education services, academics, and digital learning and libraries. Academics kind of went first, for lack of a better description. And so what you see here is the way that we used to be organized across our teams. This might not mean a whole lot to you without some additional context. One of the things that we saw very quickly when we analyzed this was that our level support teams with elementary, middle, and high, they all had close to single-digit numbers of staff members. And that included, when Sarita was in the role of the Senior Director for Elementary Education, having 120-plus schools, and she may have had 10 or 11 full-time staff members of the district to support those schools. Conversely, over on the far right side of the screen, we had more than 75 staff members on our K-12 instructional support team. That's Title I, that's ESL, that's AIG, Advanced Learning. And so one of the things that quickly, I think, showed itself was that we had way too many people. Now, don't get me wrong, we would like to just add additional support, but knowing that this was a kind of cost-neutral effort, and I want to be clear, all of this work is an effort to be cost-neutral. No new positions, no requests for new funding. It's literally, you've got what you've got. How can we better manage and move some puzzle pieces around, for lack of a better description, to maximize the efficiency and the support that we have? So one of the things that we had to do was make some moves across teams within academics where maybe we had some, and I won't use the term overstaffing, but moving staff to where we clearly had some understaffing, if that makes sense. A little bit of the timeline. Again, over the last 2 years, I think, I won't belabor this. This gives you an idea going back to the summer of 2023 when we initially launched the first phase of this work. The goal was to kind of have a quote-unquote soft launch by January of 2024. I think we, by and large, were able to do that. Full implementation, though, in terms of the academics implementation of the regional support model really didn't happen, I think, in earnest until this past school year in 24-25. And so really, we're still in the early stages. And I think every one of our team members that are in here today would tell you, again, this is a work in progress. And we've still got some things where, even where we focused on the academic side, there's cases where we've got some infrastructure and fiscal support that maybe we underestimated work streams, where we've still got some adjustments, again, using the existing positions and dollars that we have to maybe make some refinements as this continues to evolve over time. And again, we're talking specifically about academics, although this shows you that over this past year, we've begun to now integrate Michelle's team with behavior and student support services into the regional model. And obviously, next up, that you heard a little bit about last month, is special education services as well. Now, this is kind of the after or current state, and I want to, again, just kind of apologize because it can kind of be hard on the eyes, but hopefully you'll see the intent to kind of divide up into regions, Region 1 and Region 2, 4 areas and 5 areas. And again, we looked not just geographically, and by the way, this is not necessarily carving up the district in 2, either vertically or horizontally, and saying you've got Region 1 up top and you've got Region 1 out the bottom. A little more complicated than that, as you might imagine. We had to take a look at how many schools, what needs those schools have, how many Title I, how many magnet, how many non-magnet, proficiency growth, all of those things historically. Looking at that data, we arrived at kind of creating these regions, again, aligning with area superintendents, with the idea that we need to make sure that the support that schools are receiving in a more direct fashion actually feels like that. That's another area where sometimes historically we haven't always hit the mark. Despite our best efforts at times, schools might not always perceive or feel like what we're doing there is actually helpful and supportive. In fact, sometimes you might hear from folks, I certainly have over the years, that it could have the opposite effect. And so, again, that goes back to building relationships, building trust, And this next slide, I think, gives you a little bit more of a detailed breakdown in terms of what those regions look like. Each region, elementary and secondary, is led by a senior director. Again, those numbers are still not heavy, but when you add them up, it's certainly many more people that we have on these regional school support teams than we used to have. I was texting our team like an hour before the meeting, just saying, hey, just out of curiosity, how many schools have your teams been to in the last week or two? The number is over 90 different schools. And that's not even necessarily the number of supports being provided. It's probably more like 150 to 200 different supports with a PLC team, putting on a professional learning session with someone. And so one of the things that these teams are working really hard to do, and I know Chris and Sarita and Shawana will share a little bit more, we want to coordinate those efforts so that what we don't want to have happen, which historically has at times occurred, is literally if Ms. Morgan is the principal at Rogers Lane Elementary School, in the morning she's got a team from Title I coming out to provide quote-unquote support as they cross paths with a team from ESL, as they cross paths with a team from academics and the level support team. And we haven't even talked about special ed or counseling and student services. And so part of what you're seeing here is an effort to better be aware, number one. We've joked about that a little bit, like awareness is the first step. Like we all need to kind of know and understand and maintain a dashboard of where we're going and how often and in what form, so that all of us can look and see that, you know what, maybe the data says this school could use some additional support in this area, but capacity-wise, they can't take any more help. They can't take anybody else in that building beyond what they're already managing. Again, we're not there yet, but this is the intent of that model that you see in front of you. And then I think you've seen this slide before in a previous presentation, but it just kind of captures those guiding principles in terms of how and where and with whom and to whom our teams are providing support. One of the things that I will highlight here that maybe we haven't mentioned quite yet is the importance of co-designing this work. Again, going back to having this work feel like collaboration and cooperation. A lot of effort is going into working with the principal, working with the school improvement team, working with an area superintendent to co-design some of these strategies, so it's not just us in central office, up in an office on Dillard Drive, that are hatching these plans to then go out and mobilize and work with our schools. It really should be co-design and co-led, understanding that ultimately the schools have to have the support and the resources to do the work that we're asking them to do. So that gives you a quick overview and re-reference to those guiding principles. And this time, with that context and background, I'll turn it over to Michelle.
All right, good afternoon again. Thank you. We just want to make sure that we're really thinking about what it is that our schools need so that that support is designed and delivered in a strategic way that is also data-driven. So this is really just the organizational chart under Dr. Malata Hill, identifying that myself and Drew and Lisa Allred are all a part of one team, trying to make sure, along with Allison Reed and Digital Learning in Libraries, is a part of how we support schools at the end of the day. But we want to make sure that we work alongside each other, we problem solve with each other, we are aligning our efforts, all in effort to focus and support schools at the end of the day and what they ultimately need. This is a quote by John Hattie, which I think many of us are certainly aligned with, and that is that the single most important variable in determining the success of a school improvement effort is the collective efficacy of its educators. And this underscores the importance of building that capacity within our schools, ensuring that our educators not only have the resources they need, but they also have the ability to be empowered and to be supported by us so that we can help them be the successful people in the building at the end of the day. This slide is really focused on what are the key support domains that are being provided. So we certainly have systematic collaboration that is really focused on direct responsive support, a collaboration across key areas, and making sure that we are in alignment with our area superintendents, who you will hear more from in just a moment. Additionally, we want to make sure we're focused on that continuous improvement practices that include data-driven strategic planning, that is an ongoing refinement of what we're doing so that we're always in a continuous improvement model, and that our high-impact practices are where we're focusing our efforts. We also have capacity building that we want to make sure that we have specific tailored professional learning for what it is we're focused on, that we have systems of supports that emphasize sustainable support systems, that gets at that sustainability discussion, and that we're escalating, if needed, for additional resources, that we can elevate any areas that we see concern. And then lastly, the evidence of learning practices, where we're really looking at that data-driven decision-making process, monitoring our progress, and really paying attention to what might be adjustments that are needed real time, rather than waiting for something to fail before we kind of respond at that point in time. So as we think about moving forward, and what needs to happen next. Drew's gone through kind of phase 1 and phase 2, and we're really moving into that kind of phase 3 at this point in time, but really want to think about how we are adding in the student support services and the special education teams, thinking regionally. I can say that the expansion allows us to provide a comprehensive and unified support system, ensuring that each school receives the targeted interventions and resources necessary to foster that student success across all domains. And we're going to continue to do that, to continually refine and strengthen as we move forward. And just referencing back to what Drew said, we are learning internally about our own infrastructures, about things that might have been barriers to our collaboration in the past, and what do we need to do now that might mean that we need to change what those structures specifically look like. So as we're into phase 3, we are looking at fall of 2025. Obviously, the academics team has been out in front, and the school climate team from Student Support Services has been supporting with regards to the academics team, thinking about how we support what classroom management looks like, what school-wide expectations look like, and social emotional learning in alignment with, of course, the area superintendent. As we're moving into the spring of 2026, Student Support Services is continuing that work. We are launching our student support services teams work around problem solving, attendance and behavior data in the school, making sure that our teams and student services are also regionally aligned to provide support to schools as is necessary. And then as we're moving, of course, into the 26-27 school year, we are continuing that implementation for both academics and student services, but also bringing online the special education in their initial phase of that reorganization structure. We did want to make sure we commented about this. We do have a few teams.
Not more. Superintendent Taylor. I just want to see if you were paying attention. I'm looking forward to sharing my unique perspective of the regional model, having started on the academics team as senior director and now transitioning to the role as area superintendent. So when the vision for the learning model and the regional model first came, I was an early adopter. Who wouldn't want to go from supporting 122 schools with 8 team members to really narrowing down to 59 schools with 13 team members? Because I really felt that it was a practical and achievable way for us to truly collaborate with schools to improve student outcomes. So as a member of the initial team, and there are many members here today, Drew, Michelle, we really wanted to build a solid foundation for what this was going to look like. And we wanted to leverage the expertise of academics while honoring the fact that the principal is the primary instructional leader and ensuring that we were aligned to all the district priorities and goals. So during the soft launch on my team, Region 2, we really tried to focus on the schools that had the most promise for academic achievement and growth. And oftentimes, these schools were led by novice principals, so that was a very important dynamic that we had to recognize early on. So with any relationship, building trust is primary. And in some cases, it wasn't building trust, but it was strengthening the trust that we already had. So we made sure that the teachers had the materials that they needed, that they had the professional learning so that they could deliver the standards to the rigor that it called for while they engaged students with discourse and protocols. And we were really careful that we were tailoring our approach and not making a cookie cutter approach. And we sometimes tailored it to a group of schools, and sometimes it was just for a single school. So in one specific example, the data showed that an area needed support with foundational skills with second grade. So we provided a professional learning session for that area for the second grade teachers. So during the soft launch, Principal Morgan was one principal that we worked with closely at Rogers Lane Elementary, and we started by doing baseline instructional walks. So we visited every single classroom, we visited every single PLC, it was all informally. We took the data, we gave it to Ms. Morgan, we talked about it, we identified some potential next steps. And this was just not an effort of academics. We invited, included the Office of Professional Learning because they were doing a lot of work around PLCs, and we invited the school climate, the Office of School Climate. So Ms. Morgan took all of that information, and then the lead instructional leader that she is, she created a solid year-long plan that incorporated the talents that academics and the other folks from Central Services could bring. And so we followed that plan, and then at mid-year, she said, you know what, we need a benchmark assessment so that we can see if students really mastered all the standards from the first semester. So of course, we engaged our friends with data research and accountability. We created an assessment for her so that we would know if what we had implemented was working and what our next steps may be. So at that time, Dr. Savage was the area superintendent, and he was great. He touched base with all of us about twice a month and asked, how are we progressing and what support might you need? So flash forward to now, I'm honored to still be supporting Principal Morgan as the Eastern Area Superintendent, and I feel like my experience with academic is a huge help because I'm able to help principals access the right support from academics based on what the school needs. So through the collaboration with Rogers Lane, they were able to improve their school performance grade, and I'll let Ms. Morgan use her time to dive into what those outcomes look like. So I think it's really important that schools are not pulled in a lot of different directions, and Drew alluded to that earlier. And I think having the model and also the learning model, it allows us to create that on-time and bite-sized support, because now we have that common language for what instruction looks like. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Chris McCabe, and he's going to give you the regional model from his perspective.
All right, well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I just want to back up just a minute and just highlight a couple things. You know, when this whole idea around regional model came to be, it was not only needed but refreshing, because Drew said it best, we needed to do something different, right? And you've got to be willing to do something different. So, you know, to sum up what Dr. Hill said at the beginning, we were trying to synergize. We were trying to take all the people that we had and our resources and see how we could support our schools best, right? So we have to look across our schools. Our resources are limited. And so we have to look at where are the different levels of support that we need, and how can we equitably distribute these resources to help meet where the needs are the most. So when this first came about, it was like Sarita said. She said, who wouldn't want, well, I was an area superintendent at the time, who wouldn't want to partner with a whole team to kind of come in and with the principal to support a school to see great things happen for kids, right? So again, excited, early adopter, but to Drew's point, it was messy, right? We were rolling out something we've not done before. We're very big, as you all know. Job titles were changing, people were moving, and things were different. But where difference happens, opportunity lies, right? So jumped on the opportunity with East Millbrook, partnered with Dr. Johnson. Ironically, we were at East Millbrook this morning doing a check-in with East Millbrook. And there wasn't a clear structure at that time, taking you back 16 months ago, right? There wasn't a clear, exact, this is how we're going to do it. Here's the template for what we're going to develop. That's fine. We'll figure it out. And so that's what we did. And we went in with the mindset of data plus context equals support. You can't have one without the other, and Drew, I think, alluded to that early, right? If you just look at the numbers, you're probably going to miss the mark. So we had a meeting over the summer in the media center at East Millbrook, and we didn't just bring in our regional support model, because the data and the context spoke to additional needs that were outside of the structures that were in place. So like Sarita noted, she brought in some additional folks. We made sure that Magnet was there so that anything we were doing was aligned. And really specifically, because some of the data, we brought in K-12 academic enhancement and Dr. Shanika Moore-Lawrence and her team. Because we knew that there was going to be support specifically for our multilingual learners at East Millbrook. If you look back at the charts that we did in that summer meeting, you'd think we were nuts. Because they were a mess. It was all over the place. We had about 18 people in the room, and I asked Mr. Marson, the principal at East Millbrook, to set the historical context, because not everyone in the room had the full understanding of the last 5 years at East Millbrook leading up to that. Where we are, why do we think we're here, not necessarily saying we know the answer. And then set his instructional vision, where he thinks we need to go. And it's key that we were using that language, because it wasn't an approach that we knew the answers or that we had the answers. But together we wanted to make sure to find out the answers. And we had a draft plan. It's called the instructional vision, right? And it was important to set that context with the group of people cross-departmentally, because then after Mr. Marson set that, I jumped in and charged our team to align our work and use our expertise to help that instructional vision come to life, to help build collective efficacy across that school so that we could see gains for kids, right? So our support looked like professional development for our multilingual learners in the way of translanguaging. It looked like support on a weekly basis, in-person, on-campus support on a weekly basis with the instructional leadership team to build the capacity of the coaches and the admin team. It looked like supporting on-campus weekly with PLCs and helping them analyze data. And then it looked like implementing walkthroughs to check to see, how's it going? And it was risky, because there was a lot of people in that room, and cheese maybe was being moved, right? Because the call was, we're aligning to the instructional vision. We're not aligning to your expertise. You're taking your expertise and aligning to the instructional vision at the school. And honestly, the energy in the room and the excitement with the folks was awesome. It was great to be a part of that. The critical component was regular check-ins. It was messy, I've said that. We had a plan. No plan is perfect. And we knew things were going to go left, right, or that we were going to miss the mark. All hearts and minds were aligned on that day in the summer. And when life gets going, things can go awry. So, and they did. But the key check-ins, where we come in and we hear feedback from the school hears feedback from us, and we continually tweak the plan. It's like a school improvement plan. It's a living document. It can be changed at any time based on data and context. So that work bore fruit at East Millbrook, right? They exited low performing status. They moved, they had the highest improvement in EBOS growth in the district, I believe. They went from like a -5 to a positive 2.5, right? That's a huge swing in growth with students. Their student achievement increased. And like I said, they exited low performing status. First time this side of COVID, right? So the data shows that the work we did, albeit messy, but the synergy was worth it, and it paid off in student achievement gains. Now, we're nowhere near where we need to be. Plenty of work still to do, right? There's still student achievement that we need to work on. And one of the things that we learned from last year that we implemented this year was having that summer meeting in late July, way too late, way too late. And so we're talking in like March. How's it going? What's it going to look like? Let's set a meeting for April or May so that we can set full context. We know what we're doing before the teachers leave. We can set context for a professional learning plan, potentially take advantage of time over the summer to do some things. So we were able to partner with the principal from the gate this school year, right? And also, you know, the academics team has done a great job of building structure over the course of 24, 25, so that now we do have sort of like a template to build off of, and things look more similar for like when we hold meetings and follow up, and so the structures are in place to hold people accountable to the work. So that's a story of East Millbrook bearing fruit for kids.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time and attention. My name is Kiwana Morgan. I'm the proud principal at Rogers Lane Elementary. This January will make year 3 for me being at Rogers Lane and being a principal in Wake. I was one of those novice principals when I started, when the regional model rolled out, and there was a lot of work to do. And so it was very comforting to know that there was a team to help and support. And as Dr. Smith had shared, they came in, we sat down. We looked at where we were as a school and what we wanted to do as a school and how we were going to grow, and were able to create that plan. And the support that was provided to the school was tremendous. I was very thankful because, as one can imagine, I was, oh my gosh. But they were there just to provide that support and help just increase the growth and proficiency in our school. And what I will say with the academics team, the work that we have done, it's not just about, they do provide professional learning. They do come in and work with grade levels on PLCs and planning. They do look at data. But what I will say is that they also built relationships. Coming in, I had a lot of vacancies, and I started to fill those vacancies with IAs who were moving into teaching positions, or BTs, or participate teachers. And one of the things that we talk about often is how do we retain teachers and how do we build capacity in teachers. And what I realized is that by having the academics team, they were able to support those new teachers, those teachers that are coming in from different countries, to build that capacity and to really build the confidence that those teachers felt like we can do the work. And the last 2 years, have opened school with all of my core classrooms fully staffed. We've maintained staff, and that's a big part of the work that we're doing, and that's something I've recognized as a school leader, having that consistency not only with myself, but my classroom teachers, ILT, all of our teams that support. And so having the academics team come in, and one of the conversations I would have with them is, I want you all to make sure that you spend time with our teachers. I want our teachers to feel comfortable with your presence in the building, and they've done that. And they've come in, and they're familiar faces, and they're a part of our school community, and that's been very important. And I feel like teachers have been very supported in that way. Success, last year, we met growth. We were 200 points away from exceeding growth. I was very proud of the work that we did. All but one of our subgroups met growth as well last year. The score that makes up our school performance grade, we increased 12 points, which is a huge jump. So it was a heavy lift, but we did not have to do it ourselves, and that was very comforting, and so the work continues. I told my ILT team this morning, instructional leadership team this morning, I said we will not be a one-hit wonder, so we're going to continue that work, and we're continuing to lean on the academics team to help support that and help increase and continue to grow. So I've been very fortunate to have that support and not feel that I'm doing the work by myself. And I will also say I appreciate that the team has respected the plan that we create as a school. They come in and they support that plan, very flexible, and they jump in and they know how to roll up the sleeves and just get to the work. So I've been very fortunate just to have that, and very thankful and looking forward to just the expansion of what this model is going to continue to look like. Thank you.
We thank you all for your engagement today as we looked at our regional model. Know that as we enter into phase 3, we're all about continuous improvement. But I just want to publicly acknowledge the work that has been done and the collaboration that we've done across departments as we're looking at how we're going to be very focused, holistic, and supporting the data to give that tiered and targeted support to our schools. Any questions from you all?
Well, thank you all for taking us into this deep dive and, really explaining how the needle's being moved. And so it was great to hear the perspectives from area superintendents and principals, knowing that this is where the bread meets the butter. And hearing some of the gains, I had questions about some of the success, and you all have already indicated what that looked like. So, board members, do you all have any questions or comments? Start with you, Ms. Gordon.
Thank you. Thank you all for this amazing presentation. I did want to ask, when you talk about trusting relationships and shared ownership, and I heard you say that there's a gap between like central services and schools, and you mentioned co-design. One of the things that came out of my most recent Board Advisory Council meeting, where Dr. Hill was so gracious in presenting a really quick, like fast fire presentation on the learning model. One of the largest things that I took away from that meeting was that a lot of our parents, and I'm only speaking for my district, District 2, but a lot of parents in District 2 don't even know or understand the learning model. And so when we're talking about a co-design, which, I can appreciate all of the work that has been done, across departments, but when we're talking about co-design, we also have to bring in those stakeholders who are closest to our students. And so I would just encourage us to be more intentional about sharing the learning model and sharing maybe some like practical day-to-day conversations to have with students around the learning model and what does this mean in relation to student achievement and moving the needle, because we cannot move the needle without involving parents.
And Ms. Gordon, you're exactly right. And I think what this model lends for us is that common language. So not only are we all using the same language, but when we talk to our key stakeholders and who are our touch points, we need to make sure that we're speaking in that language so it becomes recognizable, and then we can all work together and move forward.
Absolutely.
But you're exactly right.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Gordon, on the way out the door, it might not be appropriate for me to volunteer this with our team, but I think it's safe to say our teams would absolutely relish the opportunity to come to your BACs and, to talk about the learning model. I think every one of us noted Ms. Rice's comments earlier about maybe the next level for this work is how are our regional teams also partnering with families and communities, and I think the BAC, we would be happy to engage in that manner anytime any of our board members felt we're able to do so.
Thank you. And I will say, I think this is going to have to be like a continual thing, because when the community was presented with the learning model at my particular BAC meeting, they were floored. They thought that it was wonderful. They thought that, approaching this through the lens of their children and our students was a great way. But they couldn't make the connection between student achievement and what the goals were for growth for each particular school and how the principals are leading their schools to at home. How am I supporting this model? Like, where do I fit in this model as it relates to my child's student achievement? So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. So it's hard to take a lot of work, so much work, and then condense it just into a presentation that's not even like half of one committee meeting. I get that. But I want to make sure I've gotten the right takeaways coming out of this. So we started, you talked about the model having kind of three main components. The strong relationships that were built through this new model, the specialized approaches that you take between elementary and secondary education, and then strategic resource allocation. So as we went and we described and we listed a lot of the results, we heard a lot, I think, in terms of the breaking down of silos, increased opportunities for collaboration, different practices within the schools. And I was able to then make the connection to how that addresses stronger relationships, kind of moves it so it's not one central office up here on high, and then all of these schools sort of fend it for themselves, right? And I understood the new structure, giving more specialized approach, elementary versus secondary education. What I didn't catch, or what I didn't perceive, was where there was that strategic resource allocation. And I looked at slide 12 that you had up there that sort of broke things down. We took 9 areas, we broke them into 4 and 5, and, you know, organized by like needs in those areas. Yes. And my math's not always the sharpest, but looking at the number of schools served, looking at the number of positions, it didn't seem like there was really like proportionately more staff resources allocated. And so if it's not staff, then where is that strategic resource allocation taking place?
So I'll share a couple of thoughts. First of all, if you look at elementary, Region 1 and Region 2, you see, and that's just academic, so you'll see 25 as opposed to the 8 that had been supporting prior, right? And so that there are increases, but I think, Mr. Haggerty, it's fair to say these are not dramatic increases. The other thing that I think that's important to point out, we've spent all of our time focused on the regional support teams. Those are 4 out of not 6 teams just in academics. We've also got staff in curriculum instruction and assessment. We still have, although it's not represented on this slide, Dr. Moore Brown's team with K-12 academic enhancement. So even though those teams are not necessarily regional, as I think was pointed out earlier, they're still using data in collaboration with those regional support teams and with other departments to try to better differentiate and target support. The other thing that and it's a great question because it's so true, we're not talking about a sea change of additional people.
Okay.
You know, but 50 to 80% more is significant.
That's
right?
exactly
We're
right.
moving some of those things around. The other thing that I think is important that maybe we didn't touch on, and this is a shift. I think about my last 11 years in academics in a couple of different positions. Up until a couple of years ago, often we went where we were called.
And somebody had to know who to call.
And I reflect even on my experience as a building principal long ago. I wasn't calling academics. I was calling security. And I'm being for real. I was calling my area superintendent. And so some schools that have the resources and are in a position, I think to your point, Mr. Haggerty, historically maybe were accustomed to calling and getting. And we're a group of doers, and we like to make people happy. And so very often the answer was yes, we'll be right there. And so, Mr. Haggerty, I think that's important because the numbers themselves aren't enough to make this model work. What has to happen is changing the model for where we go and based on what data and in what degree. And I think that's a really important point to make.
If I can just add a little to that, taking it right where Drew left off, because that's in fact what we did when we had the regional teams. We looked at data, and while the human resources numbers did increase, right? There was more people there, but it's how we use their time, right? And where are they deployed and how often were we sending folks? And I think that is probably where the biggest dramatic change is. For example, in my East Millbrook example, right? The data said that the support was needed there. And so they were getting far more touch points than another school where the data said that there was less support needed.
And Chair Haggerty, one challenge as we move into phase 3 is how we quantify that support. So we have dashboards right now, but how can we make it a seamless K-12 that is shared across departments so we're knowing exactly where that support is and what type of support is being given?
Mr. Chair, can I have just one quick follow-up?
Sure.
If we can go back to slide 12, though, I do, and I understand and appreciate all of that, but I just want to make sure I understand it. If we look at the difference between Region 1 and Region 2 on the secondary side, secondary schools, we'll see Region 1 has 5 districts versus 5 areas versus 4 areas. but you see 46 schools. In Region 2, 32 schools, right? So if you've got an increase, Region 1 has about 50% more secondary schools than Region 2. Region 2 is where we've identified more need. But Region 2 actually has one fewer academic officer and one fewer behavioral support model. If proportionally, it would just seem that there should be more behavioral health support in Region 2 if you were trying to maintain kind of, not just even consistent ratios, but even put like more assistance where that was needed. And it just seemed, I see the increase on the academic support side, but it just seemed like with the number of schools served and the proportion, I thought we might have seen a little difference in those ratios, that's all.
I think that's a good point. So the other thing that I think is important to point out is that this cannot be static.
That's what I said.
And I would hope, and I would bet that if we're doing the same presentation next year, we do need to see some adjustments. And I think, Mr. Hagerty, you make a fair point, because, year 2 looks very much like year 1 did. We kind of kept some stability. I think we maybe made a tweak here or there where these numbers were slightly different. I do think it'll be incumbent upon us moving forward to maybe continue to look to see, especially if we've got tightening budgets and, staffing issues and those kinds of things, those numbers don't necessarily need to remain static. If we let the data and the context that Mr. McKay was talking about continue to shift those resources, it shouldn't stay the way that it is next year just because that's the way we did it this year.
Okay. And that answers a lot of questions. So
That gets at that continuous improvement model,
right.
and it also
that acuity model, putting the resources where they're most
constantly
needed.
paying attention to that, and it also really gets at how are we going to ultimately respond and prioritize the focus that we want at any individual school, and that will need to adapt based on that school leader, based on the staff in that building. All of those things will adapt based on that.
So could you all add just a little bit more, because I know when you selected the numbers, that was based on the needs of the school's academic performance. So I know that was part of the consideration where you see some of the difference in the numbers. So if you could just share a little bit more on that.
Sure. So for example, and I think, again, Mr. Hagerty, I think part of the point of your question, the 46 in Region 1 that group is serving is clearly not the same as the 32. Roughly the same number is serving over in Region 2. Region 2 has far more Title I schools, for example, and just schools that have more intensive academic and behavioral support needs. And so as we developed these regions, that kind of data point was utilized in trying to create some relative balance. That said, I think even the makeup of the regions over time, longer term, like if we're having success, like we just heard a couple of examples today, then we would hope and expect that these are not forever static, and that there's continuing kind of shifts even within the regional team makeups based on success that we're seeing in some schools, right? And so I think that's a great point. And the reality is even moving people around and making all the changes and trying to prioritize direct school support, we're still stretched thin.
Mrs. Rice?
Thank you, Chair Swanson. Thank you, Chair Hagerty, for raising those points, because I don't have to. And and I echo everything that you said. And I am definitely looking forward to seeing this again and seeing some of those numbers shift. Yeah, I think those are some big questions that we have to ask, but I think we get the point. But I wanted to also share a little bit more with what Ms. Gordon was saying about the co-supports and co-design. And one thing I just really want to say is thank you guys for the hard work. Ms. Moore, who is in my district, I know does a phenomenal job with trying to support and coming in as new and all of that, have really done an excellent job with trying to reach the mark and getting parents on board. The only thing that I want to lift up that's very important to me as we continue to do this work is ingrading these levels of supports and make it a part of our culture, and really being a little bit more aggressive of it, not just being stuff that we do or work, but how do we continue to make this like, really a part of culture, basically like what Ms. Gordon was saying. One of the things that I have enjoyed seeing, but lately I haven't been seeing as much as, and I would hope that it remains in our schools at the school base, see me, know me, teach me, and engage me, is not, I'm not seeing it in my schools the way I used to. It used to be when you first walk into the building, that learning model was right there, front and center. I was taking pictures, I was sending it out, I was showing it, I was very excited. So one of the things that I hope that we will not get away from in this department, and Dr. Hill, I hope that you continue to raise up to understand that is important in our area superintendents, that model should be shown in every school in the building. And it should be very visible and seen. I have seen principals take it, and it's the pictures of our own students, and you'll see the words right there. Some schools I go to, I'm not seeing it, and for me, that's a challenge. Because that model is everything, and that is, again, I'm hoping will be deeper, ingrained, and aggressively pushed within our school-based model so that the students understand what it means, that they can turn around and use language with their teachers. I feel like you are not seeing me. I need them to be able to use those words as an advocacy tool that focuses on Wake County's policy and Wake County's student model. I tell students that all the time. I have to speak to some students tomorrow. See me, know me, hear me, engage. I mean, you can't hear me. And I believe in this model that was created. And it's a beautiful model. And it really speaks volumes. And those 4 statements are really a great way for a student to feel seen and heard, because numerous students or families are saying that, and if they use that and what that model means, and they say it to another adult, hey, I don't feel challenged, I don't feel engaged, I don't feel like you know me, that's why you're talking to me like this, right? And I think vice versa with our students saying it, with our teachers or our staff saying it to our students. And so anyway, I'm going to continue to raise my voice. I'm going to continue to speak it out loud and to say that we have to have a deep culture in Wake County of engagement with families, that there is no fear. We have to drive out the spirit of fear that people are not communicating with each other and are afraid to say certain things, and it becomes taboo. And often we don't like to say it at the table where people can hear it, but honestly, I'm tired. We need to drive out the culture of fear with staff, with students. Everybody needs to understand we care about you, we love you, because if people don't feel cared about and loved, they can't learn anyway because they don't trust you.
So I hope I did not, I feel like that was a good pause because we're at time, we're a little 10 minutes over our work session, so.
No, you're okay. I was about to say I'm finished.
Okay.
But I thank you for seeing me and hearing me and being very careful, like, oh, Ms. Rice is on her thing. But no, I'm finished. Thank you.
If I just once, if I may just say, Ms. Rice, we have the prototypes up in my office. Ms. Cooper has been working with communications, and so those posters are getting ready to go out as soon as I put the finishing touches on.
All right. Get ready. I was heard. I thank you.
Thank you all so much for.
Take all the time, I don't need to comment, so I gotta wait.
Dr. Taylor, I'll give you the final.
All I'll say is that this is the hardest work that we do. We think it's budgets, we think it's facilities, but we talk about teaching and learning. We see the commitment that we've made. a regional model is definitely what we need. Definitely go back and look at slide 8 versus slide 11 and 12, and that speaks to why we know this is necessary, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you all, and thank you for the work.
Thank you.
And we'll adjourn our meeting and convene in another room.
Thanks.